Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. Hello, 877-381-3811. I don't know where you folks are, but where I am, it is bone-chilling cold. Cold! I should be in Florida about now, shouldn't I, Mr. Producer? I'm going to get my ass down there soon enough, be honest with you. But that doesn't do most people any good, so let me go on here. It appears, ladies and gentlemen, that Joe Robinette Biden is pardoned crazy. Pardon crazy. That's what he is. 1,500 pardons? 1,500 pardons? I'd say that's a lot of pardons. Now I'm just going to go through some of these with you. And let's see, I'm pulling them up. Loading up. Give me a second. Give me a second. There we go. Here we go. Biden pardons 39 people, commute sentences of 1,500 others. Very busy. Reuters, outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden said on Thursday he was pardoning 39 people convicted of nonviolent crimes and commuting the sentences of nearly 1,500 others who were serving long prison terms. By the way, there is no reason, and Donald Trump knows this, there is absolutely no reason not to pardon the vast majority of those January 6ers. No reason. And so I think he said, that's what he's going to do on day one or something like that. It'll take time to prepare all the paperwork, but it ought to be done. This is really absolute injustice, what's happening to those people. I don't care. They can call it whatever they want. I'm not talking about the violent people. I'm talking about the other ones. Officials said last week that the White House was listening to demands for Biden to extend the same grace to thousands of people wronged by the U.S. judicial system. Now, on the one hand, they keep telling us to embrace the judicial system and the prosecutorial system when it comes to Trump and our guys, January 6th. But on the other hand, they tell us that the judicial system, while there were sentences that were just too harsh and so forth and so on, people shouldn't have been prosecuted. And this, of course, is the way a mobster dictator thinks. He said people would have received shorter sentences if charged under today's laws, policies, and practices. Well, that's not how it works, is it? Sources told Reuters last week about those pardons I told you. As president, I have the great privilege, he said, of extending mercy to people who've demonstrated remorse and rehabilitation. Yeah, 1,500 cases. I'm sure he read every folder. I'm sure he knows all their names. Restoring opportunity, and he goes on with the self-serving and self-righteous BS. He added that he will take time for more steps in the weeks ahead, and his administration will continue reviewing clemency petitions. So, excuse me, so it's open season. It's open season. And Donald Trump, I'm sure, will, in the case of real justice, will take steps to take care of those January 6ers, because this is really, truly pathetic. Now, there's a little bit more here about these that you're not being told that I want to get into in a little bit more detail here. This is the Chicago Tribune. President Joe Biden commutes sentences of two of Chicago area's most notorious fraudsters. Oh, I thought these were just down and out people who were put upon. No, among those commuted, had their sentences commuted, two of Chicago area's most notorious fraudsters, former Dixon controller Rita Crudwell, who embezzled nearly $54 million from the tiny town to fund a lavish lifestyle, and Eric Bloom, the one-time leader of the Northbrook management firm who defrauded investors of more than $665 million. Now, I have to say, this really is right down Biden's pike, isn't it? Oh, yeah. These two fraudsters are just trying to make a living, ripping people off, just like the Biden family. Except in their case, they get money from enemy governments. The decisions in the clemency petitions for Crudwell and Bloom were announced by the White House as part of a massive list of some 39 pardons and 1,499 commutations. Now, let me tell you how this works. Let's just call it a 1,500 to keep it easy. 1,500 commutations, 40 pardons. See, by throwing that much against the wall, by throwing that many pardons and clemencies out there, he's really hiding the ones that he really wants to do. See what I'm saying, Mr. Producer? And so here we have the Chicago newspaper that actually dug in and said, wait a minute, we know who these two people are. And I'm sure there's a lot more of that in the heavy list of pardons and commutations that this buffoon gave out today, this morning. And so, as I said, we have two here. Former Dixon controller Rita Crudwell, who embezzled nearly $54 million from her tiny town. And then we have Northbrook management leader firm who defrauded investors of more than $665 million. The decisions of the clemency petitions for Crudwell and Bloom were announced by the White House. Again, surrounded by these massive dispositions. The White House said the commutations were for people released from prison and placed on home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Crudwell, 71, pleaded guilty in 2012 to what authorities then called the largest municipal fraud in the country's history. She admitted she stole $537 million from the city over more than a decade and used the money to finance her quarter-horse business and lavish lifestyle. So that's, excuse me, I misread that because I can't see. $53.7 million. That's about $54 million over a 10-year period. So she gets 20 years in federal prison. In 2020, she petitioned a federal judge for early compassionate release based on her poor health and COVID-19 pandemic. She'd served about 8 years behind bars of the 20 years before being released in 2021 to a halfway house. Crudwell had have completed her sentence in 2028, but she wasn't feeling well. Bloom, meanwhile, the one-time head of Sentinel Management Group, was convicted by a jury in 2012 in what was billed by prosecutors at the time as the largest single financial fraud in the history of Chicago's federal court system. And the prosecution alleged as head of Sentinel, Bloom secretly began exposing his well-heeled customers to an increasingly risky mix of leverage deals, leading the company's collapse 4 years later. Bloom, 59, he was sentenced in 2015 to 14 years in prison, and he's been serving out his sentence at a residence residential reentry facility in Florida. And his prison time was his sentence had been due to expire in May 2026. So these are two of the people that Biden felt compelled to help. And I'm guaranteeing you there's more in there if the press will look. Most of the press won't look. But there's the Chicago Tribune, the local press that did look, and look what they found. But wait a minute. You're telling me there's more? From our friends at the Federalist. You believe this? I'm not done. Biden quietly commuted sentence of Chinese spies by Brianna Lyman at the Federalist. President Joe Biden announced on Thursday he was granting 39 pardons and 1,499 commutations in what his administration called the largest single-day grant of clemency in modern history. They're bragging about it. They're bragging about it. But it's not Thursday's set of commutations that have caught the attention of concerned Americans. It is, but there's more. It's those that were quietly given weeks ago to Chinese spies. You know, they paid him for something. He's got to pay them back. Twitter or X user Nick Sortor posted that Biden just pardoned multiple Chinese spies and an individual convicted of possessing child pornography. Why? But the thing is, Biden didn't just commute the sentences of these criminals. He did it quietly, only days before Thanksgiving. While most Americans were finalizing their menu and getting into the holiday spirit, Biden commuted the sentence of Yang Zhu on November 22nd. Zhu was convicted in 2022 for, quote, conspiracy to commit economic espionage, conspiracy to commit trade secret theft, attempted economic espionage by theft or fraud, attempted theft of trade secrets by taking or deception. Well, some people make mistakes. But according to Biden's pardon, quote, it is in the national interest that the term of imprisonment related to the aforesaid conviction not be served in its entirety. Why? We know why. This guy was the Manchurian and is the Manchurian president. He's bought and paid for. Zhu was ordered to leave the United States and never return or commit any other crimes against the United States, according to the pardon. Now, listen, we're going to let you go. Go home to your spy masters and never come back. Okay. Boy, that was tough. Similarly, spy Jing Huang was convicted of, quote, conspiracy to defraud the United States, impersonating agents of foreign governments, statements, or entries generally. Xi arrived in the United States in 2013 on an F-1 visa before later enlisting in the U.S. Army Reserves, quote, under a program allowing legal immigrants with special skills to serve, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, here's the gist. According to the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Xi worked at the direction of high-level intelligence officers in the Jiangsu Province Ministry of State Security, a provincial department of the Ministry of State Security for the People's Republic of China. But Biden commuted his sentence. Quote, on November 22, Biden, with no fanfare or public announcement, granted clemency to Xi and Zhu. The Chicago Sun-Times report, well, the Chicago papers are doing their job. Of course, the Compost, the Washington papers are dead. The New York Slimes, the Daily News, they're dead. Nothing from them. Noting that the move may have been part of a prisoner swap. Notably, Biden doesn't indicate in either document granting clemency why he chose to do so. I told you why. They paid him I almost cursed, Mr. Producer. They paid him a crap load of money over the years, and he's paying them back. This is what mobster dictators do. Damon Chernis, the attorney who represented Xi, told the Chicago Sun-Times he was not notified about the clemency beforehand. Have you ever heard of that before? So Biden's cutting deals with the commies on his own. I learned about it Wednesday morning when he was released. Chernis told the Chicago Sun-Times it was not something that anyone was made aware of, including my client. Even more disturbing, Biden also granted clemency to Shalanjin, who was convicted after, quote, police found more than 47,000 images and videos of child pornography in his computer, unquote. Did he smell their hair and rub their shoulders like you-know-who? The big guy, Mr. 10%? One such video allegedly showed an adult. I don't want to read that. Now, the three commutations were reportedly part of a prisoner swap in exchange for Mark Sweden, Kai Li, in Janlund, according to the Financial Times. But prisoner swaps are typically hailed by the president and the media. When basketball player Brittany Griner was released from Russia in exchange for the man known as Merchant of Death, Biden held a press conference at the White House celebrating her return. He similarly held another event where Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan were released. So why was Biden and his administration so quiet about the Chinese swap, asks Brianna Lyman. Money, 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 money. The communist Chinese paid for their favors. They know what Biden is. They know what the family is. He's a mobster dictator, but he's also been the Manchurian president. Oh, there'll be more. And unfortunately, our vast media hasn't dug into all these 1,499 clemencies and 39 pardons. I'm sure they won't. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Apparently, this is the single greatest day of commutations and pardons in modern American history. The second largest single day was Barack Milhouse Benito Obama, with 330 clemencies before he left office. So there'll be many more by Joe Robinette Biden, a.k.a. Mushhead. And don't forget, we have those other kinds of pardons coming. The preemptive pardons. I suspect they will come closer to his departure, and I believe there will be a lot of them. Some people will not have asked for them. Some people are quietly asking for them. Some people are openly asking for them. Big dumb B.J. Bill Clinton. That's right. Bill J. Clinton, B.J. Clinton, said maybe his wife ought to get one. Well, I have to admit, Hillary Clinton has been involved in criminal-like activity for most of her useless career, quite frankly. And she skated. It's amazing. She skated. Joe Biden skates. They all skate. Pretty much. But I wouldn't be surprised he put that out there, that Hillary Rotten Clinton may well get a preemptive, or whatever they want to call it, before Joe leaves office. I suspect that's true. So here we have a massive abuse of this system. So whether it's 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 individuals or more related to January 6th are pardoned and or given clemency depending on their sentences, I will be applauding. And there's a handful in particular who I'm familiar with that I'm certain will be among them. We certainly want to make sure they are. We're going to have in next hour Julie Kelly, because there's a report put out by the independent, the general inspector at the Department of Justice on January 6th. The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it could be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Nobody says it better than Mark Levin.
I'll go with what Mark Levin said, because nobody could say it better.
Call in now at 877-381-3811.
How yous doing? All right, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, environs. Those things flying in the sky. John Kirby has figured out what they are. John Kirby. Remember him, the guy who lied about Afghanistan, the guy who lied about Israel, the guy who lied about Russia and Ukraine? Remember him, John Kirby? What will he do when the administration is over? He'll probably land a job, maybe as an anchor on CBS. You never know. They could use an anchor over there. Nora's kind of a dope. Is she even the anchor anymore? I don't know. But here's John Kirby at a press briefing today, so don't worry about those drones. What the hell's wrong with you people? What is wrong with you people? Cut 16, go.
Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings.
Hello. What? That's right. All of you citizens looking out your windows and your doors and seeing these things flying around. It's so bad they can't even corroborate that they exist. You hear this, Mr. Producer? Now we've reached a point that we not only don't know who's flying them, friend or foe, but now we don't know if they're actually there. I guess they're putting in this in the UFO category, you know. But he goes on. Go ahead.
Upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard
What do you mean, manned aircraft? These are swarming drones. Their lights go out when people seek to identify them with other lights and so forth and so on. There are literally thousands of people who see this. It's on video. And he wants you to believe that these are manned aircraft. Now, aren't you sick of this guy? With his $3,000 suit and tie and shirt and whatever else he's doing? Aren't you sick of this guy? Go ahead.
State of New Jersey, and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are
now,
no...
that's a very interesting phrase. There's no evidence of foreign manned aircraft from coastal vessels. Any other anything else? Any other possibilities? There's a zillion possibilities. It doesn't have to be from a ship on the coast. Maybe it's from a warehouse. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's from a truck. Go ahead.
Or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. Now, that said,
there's no confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace, and yet I've seen maps where the drones are, Mr. Producer. A Coast Guard site, a missile site, an Air Force site. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you understand. It's like during the campaign. Or it's like the Biden presidency, where he's banging off walls, where he's walking into the dark, where he's staring into the ether, where all kinds of weird stuff's going on. You go, wait a minute, that guy has dementia. No, he doesn't. He's Einstein. Stop it. No, he doesn't. He's Edison. Stop it. Then the debate comes and he slobbers all over himself and we got to get rid of this guy. He's a nut. These are the same mouthpieces. These are the same propagandists on the drones. So their answer to Chris Smith, their answer to the other Republicans and some Democrats, their answer to the governor and I guess the senators of New Jersey is they don't exist. Close your eyes and they'll go away. They don't exist. Go ahead.
We take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports, even though they have uncovered no malicious activity or intent at this particular stage.
Well, let's see. Photographing, videotaping, gathering information about our aircraft, gathering information about comings and goings. Sounds like the same crap they fed us with the Communist Chinese balloon. Oh, that's not a balloon. That's Chris Christie. Excuse me? That's Chris Christie up there, yes. He hasn't had a bowel movement in a month. He's up there. There's nothing we can do about it. It's Chris Christie. Excuse me, you expect us to buy that? Yes, we do. So some reporter in Montana looks up and says, what the hell is that? That's a balloon. It's a big round balloon. So our high technology, cutting-edge technology, tracking systems, nothing. Radar systems, nothing. NORAD, nothing. There's some guy in the middle of Montana. What the hell is that up in the sky there? Oh, look at that. Big round thing. And then, don't worry, it's not a problem. And, it's a balloon. And then finally, it's the Communist Chinese balloon. It's flying over NORAD, it's flying over nuclear sites, it's flying over major metropolitan areas and off the East Coast. We finally shoot it down after they gather all the technology they want. These are the morons we're dealing with. But have you listened to what he said? It's just incredible. There's no malicious activity, whatever that means. No evidence of any foreign-based involvement in coastal vessels. That's a little narrow. No reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. That's not correct. That's simply not correct. Visual sightings have not been corroborated? What are you talking about? There's citizens all over New Jersey who are screaming at the top of their lungs about this. Even that dummy governor was talking about it. It appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft. No, they're not. It appears that many of them aren't. Now, Cory Booker finally spoke up, and my God, is this man profound. Of course, he's a day late and a dollar short. Actually, he's a week late and many dollars short, but that's our man, Cory Booker. What did he have to say of some relevance and profundity? Cut 15, go.
I've been a little frustrated. There hasn't been enough transparency, letting people know what's happening. It's allowing a lot of potentially misinformation to spread, or at least fear. We should know what's going on over our skies, and I've asked for a lot more information.
Wow, you're something else. No doubt you view yourself as presidential material. He'll run in the next round, but then again, who won't? So there's the latest update on the drones. They don't exist. If they did exist, they're not hostile. They're certainly not coming from ships off the shoreline, so we're told. In fact, there's no actual verification that people are actually seeing these things. They're just imagining these things. In fact, many of the things they're seeing are actually manned aircraft. How many men can fit into a drone that's about 3 feet long, Mr. Producer? Not many, right? Not many. I can't think of many. I can think of some, but not many. And so there's your update. And Cory Booker's on the job. I don't know what's going on. We need more transparency. That's our senator. Not mine, thank God, but people in New Jersey. That's your drone update. In other words, there is no update. There's lies. See how smoothly Kirby lies? He's good at it, man. He doesn't know a lie from a truth if it would have punched him in the nose. He just doesn't know. He's so used to lying that he even lies about drones. It's not, there's no verification. But shut up, you idiot. Be good to be done with him, too. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. President Trump's been out there doing interviews. Doing a hell of a job at his interviews, too, I might add. Excellent job. He was on CNBC. Yes, they still exist. He was on CNBC about the economy. Cut 11, go.
Well, we're going to be having a lot of talks with China. We have a good relationship with China. I have a surprising relationship. Now, when the COVID came in, I sort of cut it off. That was a step too far. That was, as they say, a bridge too far. But we've been talking and discussing with President Xi some things and other world leaders. And I think we're going to do very well all around. And we've been abused as a country. We've been badly abused from an economic standpoint, I think, and even militarily. We put up all the money, they put up nothing, and then they abuse us on the economy. And we just can't let that happen. We're not going to be abused anymore. We put America first, but we're also going to help other countries.
I don't think I've ever lived in a time when we had an elected president, not yet sworn in, who basically is filling the gap for the existing president because he's demented and lazy. And Donald Trump is effectively, in many respects, not all obviously, but in many respects, the de facto president of the United States, Mr. Producer. The world leaders don't want to talk to Biden. They want to talk to Trump. Even that weasel in France, Macron. The butcher of Beijing, Xi, wants to talk to Trump. Putin wants to talk to Trump. They all want to talk to Trump. I can't say I blame them. But we have a de facto president in this country. Think about this. We have a de facto president. Because the cabinet will not exercise the 25th Amendment. The vice president, in an unbelievable, historic coup, stole the nomination from him, ran for president, and was soundly defeated in a landslide. She's another one. She's a Where's Waldo. She's a Where's Waldo. Biden pops up every now and then to take credit for things he didn't do. You got to hope the monitor doesn't turn off, or he goes back into that gibberish. He's very fluent in gibberish, but that's about it. We have a de facto president. Cut 12, go.
We're going to do things, I think, that haven't been really done before. We're going to be cutting taxes still further. As you know, we got it down to 21%. We're going to bring it down even below that. You pay 21 if you don't build here, and meaning your product or whatever it is you're building. And if you do, we're going to try getting it down to 15%. But you have to build your product, make your product in the USA.
Let me tell you, this is the Trump economic plan, which is sort of a hybrid of the Reagan plan. In other words, slash taxes, slash regulations, fight hard, and he's got a real leg up with Musk and Vivek to try and control the government to do your very best. You're not going to get any help from the Democrats, that's for sure. And some Republicans, too, for that matter. And in terms of tariffs were used by Reagan, but not nearly to the extent Trump wants to use them. But he wants to use them because he believes that the industrial might of the United States has been eroded over decades of appeasement to the communist Chinese and other governments. And so he's saying we need a period of time where we can rebuild our industries, where we can hire our people, where we can create internal growth. We need a period where we do those things. And I think he's looking at some presidents in the past who actually have been relatively successful at this. Some have failed miserably, but some have been successful as well. McKinley was enormously successful. He was a big tariff guy when he was in Ohio, when he was in the Congress, and obviously when he was president of the United States before he was assassinated. He was a huge tariff guy. I'm not a huge tariff guy. I mean, I believe in tariffs against our enemies, absolutely 100%. Export controls against our enemies. I also believe in tariffs against countries that are trying to destroy our industries, like Reagan did, even against an ally, Japan, that was trying to destroy our electronics industry, and by the way, destroyed a lot of it. Whether it's things like televisions, rudimentary as televisions, or chip making. Most chip making is now done in Taiwan, as a matter of fact. So anyway, I think when it comes to the economy, it's sort of a mix of sort of Reaganomics and Trumponomics, which is the adjustment or modification of Reaganomics for our time. And he's betting on a massive explosion of growth, which is what he had when he was president the first time around, a massive explosion of growth. And I love to talk about trimming the government. We haven't heard that talk in a long, certainly not from the Bushes or the Rhinos. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number. Why am I in the mood for spaghetti with garlic bread? I don't know. 877-381-3811. Hello. Which reminds me, do you know the Food Channel has higher ratings right now than CNN, Mr. Producer? Are you aware of this? Oh, you know what? I forget the name. My wife's going to kill me of this show we actually all like to watch. I don't really watch the Food Channel, but there's a show that I watch. It's a British show, a baking show. Do you know what I'm talking about, Rich? Are you there, Rich? Yes! Were you looking that up? What's it called? The Great British Baking Show? It is great. So that's one thing we all watch together, because we don't have exactly this. Oh, and tonight, after my show, Chicago PD. I like this channel ION. I especially like the FBI that they run on Monday nights. I love all their shows. They're going to take the Reagans off. It drives me nuts. The CBS. CBS is a complete loser entity. The Reagans with Tom Selleck and other. I mean, that is a great, wholesome cop show. It really is. And you cops should be very upset about what they're doing to this show. And it's the Reagan family for a reason. It's a Catholic family. It's a very honorable family that does honorable things. I mean, they don't preach, but they teach morality and right from wrong. It's really a fantastic show. It's been on for 14 years. I really caught it because my wife started watching about 6-7 years ago. It's a great, great show. And it's got great ratings. And they're killing it. They just taped the last show. Chicago PD, Chicago Fire. These are good shows, really good shows. And the FBI. And they focus a lot on an FBI agent who is of Egyptian ancestry and who's Muslim. And a very patriotic Muslim American, but a Muslim who obviously embraces his faith and sees things in terms of discrimination he doesn't like, but it's not a show about discrimination. It's a show about Americanism. I can remember one show where he's confronted by another Muslim who's quite radical, and they say, what are you, Egyptian? He says, no, I'm American. It's a really good show. In the Chicago PD show, I can't remember the actor's name. Like the head of the intelligence unit. This guy is unbelievable. This guy is great. And the fact that, how about that show? I don't know how much longer it's going to last. I hope it lasts forever, but they do things on that show that reminds me of the cops in the Rizzo period in Philadelphia, where there was peace and quiet in the streets. Boy, they hated Rizzo, and boy, did he hate them. Frank Rizzo. Anybody ever hear that name? Frank Rizzo? No, probably not. Probably not. By the way, we have a great Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday and a great Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday. You know, we won Saturday night, we won Sunday night, but we're up against the most fierce competition. Saturday night, I think it was the football championship. What was it, the ACC, Mr. Producer? Why am I asking you? You don't know. Where's Stephen A. when I need him? Now, in Sunday night, we're up against Sunday Night Football, and they have good games and 60 minutes. So it's tough. And, of course, the programs before us and after us benefit from our ratings. That's the way it is. They call us the pole in the tent, if you understand what I mean. And so despite all that competition, we won primetime night, not just on Fox, but CNN and MSNBC combined. We defeated them. What's it like doing TV, putting your makeup on, trying to do a substantive show? You're doing TV and nobody's watching. What is that like? I don't know, but what is it like? It's kind of weird. It's like many years ago I've talked about when Mr. Producer and I, when the syndication was getting going, and we're doing a radio show, and it turns out we're on 5 stations, and not one of them was carrying it. They were all carrying sports. Remember that, Rich? We were literally talking to each other. It was unbelievable. It was hilarious, actually. When you look back on it, it's hilarious. When you're going through it, it's not all that funny. So we have Saturday night General Jack Keane, who is the best. And we love him on my show. He loves doing the show because we let him speak. We let him speak. And he's got a lot to say about Syria and what's going on in the Middle East. He's got a lot to say about Trump and Biden. He's got a lot to say about so many important things. And I trust this man a lot. He's a retired 4-star general. He really is brilliant. And Hans von Spakovsky, one of our favorites. He's a longtime justice lawyer over at the Heritage Foundation, oversees election law, also immigration law he gets into. We're going to discuss that at great length. Birthright citizenship, chain migration. What is all that stuff? And this birthright citizenship especially. And then Sunday night, oh my goodness gracious. We've got the great Newt Gingrich, and Newt really is most fantastic on my show because, again, I let people speak. We do long-form interviews. Followed by Alan Dershowitz, who hasn't been on cable lately. Got a lot to discuss with him. But most of all, of course, me. I will be doing the opening statements both nights. Because who else is going to do them if I don't do them? Nobody. So please, if you can't listen live, if you're not sure you can listen live, set your DVR, your smart TV, however you do it. You can set it permanently. You know, Mr. Producer, my wife does that all the time when she wants to watch a show. What's that? You set it once, right? Yeah. You can set it once, and that's the end of it. So I want to encourage you to do that. I really do. Because I said, we do these shows for you. If you don't want to watch them, I'm not going to do them. Because I don't it's not necessary. I don't want to talk to myself. And so far, we're not talking to ourselves. And when football goes away, of course, we crush it even more. But I'm not a fool. This is all possible because of you. This is all possible because of you. And I'm deeply appreciative, I always am, of you. Christopher Wray announced that he would be resigning. He did it yesterday, as you know, but we had a lot to do, and that wasn't at the top of the list, but it's more so at the top of the list now, as far as I'm concerned. The war on Kash Patel goes on. The media are panicking over Christopher Wray's resignation. He did such a great job of chasing down Trump, Trump's family. You know, all this FBI abuse and so forth. Christopher Wray had to sign off on all this stuff. Just because he acts like he's a rope-a-dope, it doesn't mean he is. Our friends at Newsbusters, really such a fantastic entity, with Brett Bozell and Tim Graham and the folks. They put a little montage together. Cut 2, go.
The FBI director just resigned. Christopher Wray announced a moment ago that he will leave by the end of the current administration.
Oh, my God, the inhumanity, the indecency. Oh, what are we going to do without... What's his name again? Oh, Christopher Wray. Oh, my... What are we going to do? Go ahead.
Very difficult, and I'm very disappointed that Director Wray decided to resign.
It's a sad day for the institution.
I'm struggling to really understand.
There were some people who were seen crying in the room.
There was also a somber tone at times and some sadness.
I just want to emphasize what a departure from the norms this is.
This is a norm-shattering event.
This unprecedented move.
We've become...
Okay, hold on. It's a norm-shattering event. Who's Norm? Norm is shattered? What are they talking about? It's a norm-shattering event. What is this, Cheers? Oh, the tears of the emotion. You should have seen it. People with their faces in their hands. Christopher, what's his name? What? Christopher Wray. Oh, my God. Go ahead.
Firing FBI directors.
That normalizes the idea that you can just replace FBI directors when you just don't like what they're doing.
It was Trump himself who appointed Wray, a fellow Republican.
Chris Wray, somebody who he nominated himself, now for Donald Trump is the face of the so-called deep state.
This, of course, clears the way for Trump's pick, Kash Patel.
Wait a minute. Wait. An elected president gets to pick the FBI director. It clears the way. What's going to happen to democracy? Oh, that is democracy. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Dance for Christopher Wray, where he tried for years to keep the FBI away from partisan politics.
It's done such a fantastic job with those SWAT teams and, oh, yes, going after Trump. And did I mention going after Trump and going after Trump? Fantastic. And the way they they hunted down January 6ers who weren't even violent. Oops, I was on the land. I was on the property. Ooh. While giving a pass to so many others. That's right. That's right. Oh, they're not politicized. They're the most politicized Department of Justice, and that includes the FBI in our lifetimes. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, they say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper. You'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone, don't you think? Well, don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/Levin, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Welcome back, America. We're here with our friend, Julie Kelly, an expert on so many things. Fantastic reporter as well. January 6th, absolutely nobody better. Julie Kelly, how are you, my friend?
Great, Mark. Thanks so much for having me on. So good to hear your voice.
It's a pleasure, likewise. So what happened today with the Inspector General at the Department of Injustice and so forth?
So, Mark, you are familiar with Michael Horowitz, the longtime Obama-appointed DOJ Inspector General. Mm-hmm. He has done some good work, but look, let's face it, he's a company man. And he has delayed the release of this report, which we've all been waiting for, that was supposed to disclose the activity of FBI informants, undercover agents, assets, et cetera, on January 6th. Now, after nearly 4 years, he comes up with an 88-page report, very thin, and gives a few crumbs, allegedly says that there were only 26 confidential human sources, also known as informants, at the Capitol on January 6th. People who I talked to who are very familiar with the court proceedings in Washington say there's no way that that number is accurate. Nonetheless, Michael Horowitz also threw out a little chum for regime reporters saying that there's no evidence of FBI undercover employees. As you know, Mark, that's totally different than informants. But that is the narrative then that the regime media is running with. Nonetheless, this is not in any way full disclosure of FBI assets involved before and on January 6th, and I assume our friend Kash Patel will give us a much more accurate account of the FBI's involvement on January 6th.
You're right. I looked at this. It's thin, 88 pages. Oh, we looked through 50,000 documents and videos and all the rest of it, and you're exactly right, being an old justice guy, to say we employees... that's a dead giveaway there. The FBI doesn't send employees into these operations. It sends, third parties into these operations. They pay them, they're undercover, and so forth and so on. And you're right, they barely touch the surface of this. 88 pages. I mean, we could have written this in our sleep, quite frankly. He didn't get to the bottom of very much, did he?
He didn't, Mark, and I'm disappointed. I expected a little bit better from Horowitz here because in 2019, he released a pretty scathing report and investigation into the FBI's confidential human source program, one that, by the way, costs us about $45 million a year. He was very critical of how the FBI handles, especially longtime sources, how they pay them cash, how there's no oversight of these informants. And so I really thought maybe he would do a better job here. 88 pages, mostly filler, talking about DOJ guidance related to the use of informants. He relied on transcribed interviews from the J6 committee. Why didn't you conduct your own interviews? But I'll tell you who didn't sit for an interview, Mark, and that is FBI Director Christopher Wray. Now, why didn't Chris Wray sit with the DOJ Inspector General who's trying to get to the bottom of what Chris Wray himself calls a domestic terror attack, refuses to sit with him? So did his former deputy, David Bowdwich. He sat for an interview with the J6 committee, but didn't talk to the Inspector General of the DOJ. Very interesting.
And what did he say about the National Guard?
Right. Nothing about the National Guard.
Not a word.
But I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, because once again, the American people are supposed to believe that the FBI's intelligence and security failures on January 6th were just a mistake. It was confusion. It was a lack of chain of command, lack of communication, coordination. That's what Michael Horowitz wants us to believe in terms of why the FBI didn't have intelligence and do something in advance of January 6th. This all is a familiar pattern by these agencies. We can't certainly continue to believe that incompetence and confusion is why these very powerful federal agencies did not do more on January 6th.
It really was a CYA, the way I see it. Here's an example, Politico's or MSN.com's coverage. Horowitz stressed no sources were encouraged or authorized by the FBI to enter the Capitol or any restricted area, and stressed that they were not encouraged or authorized to commit any illegal acts. 88 pages. He really didn't provide substance for that. 23, the confidential human sources present on January 6 came to Washington to the Capitol on their own. Of that group, 3 entered the Capitol during the riot, and an additional 11 sources entered the restricted area around the Capitol. I don't understand. What is a confidential human source for the FBI? They just show up and volunteer, and all of a sudden, when they're done, they go to the FBI? Does that even make any sense to you?
Of course not. And Mark, you know from my coverage of the FBI's plot, the entrapment operation to allegedly kidnap and kill Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, that was a complete FBI entrapment operation from start to finish. Now, there were no documents or reports or forms between these FBI handling agents and more than a dozen informants who were involved. No. What the defense attorneys in that case uncovered were numerous, hundreds of text messages back and forth between the FBI handlers and their sources, telling them, instructing them what to do. Now, I saw this in court filings in the Whitmer case. I heard it in 2 federal trials. Are you telling me that Michael Horowitz saw all of the text communications between what we know, FBI handlers from at least 14 field offices, and all of their informants? Of course he did it. So how is he making that judgment? It's impossible to believe that he even had access to those materials, let alone has a full accounting of the communications between FBI agents and their informants.
Very flimsy, really very unprofessional job. Why do you think he released it now when he did?
Well, I do think it precipitated Chris Wray's announcement yesterday that he was going to be stepping down. But I think Horowitz thinks that this is enough to keep his job, because Donald Trump is the only person who could fire an inspector general, and Horowitz wants to see exactly where he is.
Well, keep up your great work, Julie Kelly. She's on Substack, Declassified with Julie Kelly. I encourage you to keep track of Julie Kelly. Thank you, my friend, and God bless you. She's fantastic. We'll be right back. You know, they say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper. You'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone, don't you think? Well, don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/LEVIN, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
America's most powerful conservative voice. The Mark Levin Show. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
Crocodile tears for Christopher Wray. The Democrats love the guy for a reason. Kash Patel will be a great FBI director for a reason. And so they keep bringing out the same lowlives, like this guy Dan Goldman, who I've pointed out to you before. He really is a human hemorrhoid on the body politic. He's a hemorrhotic. And the Morning Joe continues to do itself a disservice by giving this clown a platform, and here he is. Cut 3, go.
Joe, this is exactly the difference between a nonpartisan...
Wait a minute. God bless you. Who was that, Mr. Producer? Sounds like a guy sneeze, right? Can you go to the top of that again, please? I want to hear this again. Go ahead.
Joe, this is exactly the difference between...
Distracting, but go ahead.
Joe, this is exactly the difference between a nonpartisan, apolitical FBI and the political...
Coming from this jackass, it's like, this guy's dumb as a doorknob. He was, I can't believe, an AUSA with the Southern District, which means they really lowered their standards for this guy. They really lowered their standards. Maybe like Pocahontas, he put in something there that he's 1% something or other because no way he should have been a prosecutor. And then he's lecturing about this is the difference between a partisan. A partisan? That's what this guy is. Go ahead.
Donald Trump inhabits. Christopher Wray wanted to do what was best for the FBI. That is not what...
How do you know he wanted to do what's best for the FBI? Did it turn out that way? No. FBI's a mess, thanks to him, thanks to Mueller. We've had lousy leadership there, lousy. And I know a number of old-timers who used to work there, who love the agency, who spent their life there, their career there. And they were right at the top, or right below, right at the top. And they're very unhappy with what the hell's been taking place under Christopher Wray, and before him under Comey, and before him under Mueller. Very unhappy. Go ahead.
Probably best, or I would say what is best for the country. I would have much rather that he waited and made Donald Trump...
Okay, goodbye, schmuck. All right, now Amy Klobuchar. Remember her? Before we got to know Kamala Harris, the lovely Kamala Harris, and how she brutalized her staff and nobody stayed. 9 of every 10 left or were fired. It's actually 92%, but we can't count one person for 2%. Anyway... But Amy Klobuchar, before we got to know Kamala Harris, as we did, she was the queen of viciousness when it came to staffers. She was always voted by former staff and current staff as a witch. They despised her. They hated her. It's all over the internet. You can find. But no. She's a constipated news network, CNN, go-to person. As CNN brings in a conga line of Democrats to tell us about Kash Patel and the FBI. Because that's what CNN is, a conga line of Democrats. And by the way, as I mentioned, their ratings are below the Food Channel. And this isn't a put-down of the Food Channel. It's a put-down of CNN. I mean, anybody could run CNN better than CNN's being run and has been run. Okay, here's Amy Klobuchar. Go.
I think that Kash Patel's nomination is a reason that we're going to have background checks on these nominees. It's one of the reasons.
How about a background check on you and your treatment of other human beings? Can we have a background check of you? Why don't you just submit to one and say, look, I'm an angel. I'm as perfect as it gets. I am moral. I am ethical. There's nothing in my background. Nothing. All these staffers are liars. All these people are liars. I am not nuts. No, I don't yell at them. No, I don't beat them. I don't do it. Amy, settle down. Oops. Like I said, it's good that we're going to be doing background checks on people like Kash Patel. And yet these people who throw rocks and shoot arrows, they're nuts. She's a nut. She's one of the nuts. Go ahead.
Is why we have to have an open hearing. I just don't think that should be the mission.
We are having an open hearing. Nobody said we aren't. All the nominees go through an open hearing. We have to have it. I insist. We are having... No, I insist. We have to... Amy, we are having an open hearing. Let me get back to my staff. I'm angry. I need to yell at somebody. All right, go ahead.
Of the FBI. It shouldn't be a revenge mission.
No, it shouldn't be a revenge mission because... If anything, the FBI under the Biden regime and under the Democrats has not been a revenge mission, has it, ladies and gentlemen? No. No, SWAT teams and such, going after pro-lifers in front of abortion clinics, going after parents. Yeah. This is common stuff. This is normal stuff. This is what we expect from our FBI leadership. And, of course, a SWAT team going into Mar-a-Lago, former president, future president's home, going through the drawers in their bedrooms, going through their underwear. Yeah, this is normal. We expect this from the FBI, ladies and gentlemen. This is good stuff. Kash Patel. He might stop this. We can't have that. If he stops this, what will we say? What will happen to the nation? What will it be like? No, you don't understand. Hey, stop talking to me! Anyway, Amy Klobuchar. Then we have Douglas Brinkley. Nothing like his uncle, who was fantastic. But Douglas Brinkley, every now and then he shows up on Fox and comes across as a reasonable historian. Then he goes on the other networks, one of his other personalities, and he's a left-wing Democrat hack. Left-wing Democrat hack. All these historians, like that, what's the other guy's name? Beschloss. And John fill-in-the-blank, whatever the hell that guy's name is. Yeah, they're all hacks. But here's Brinkley. Very worried about retribution and revenge at the FBI under Kash Patel. Now, all these phony civil libertarians, all these phonies who care about law enforcement being objective, they were cheering, they were thrilled, they wanted Trump hanging by a telephone pole naked by his foot, like Mussolini. That's what they wanted. They cheered on the unconstitutional hitman, Jack Smith. They cheered it all on. They cheered on the Manhattan court, an open Stalinist operation. That was great. Now Kash Patel, my God, well, there might be revenge. They don't believe in a double-edged sword. They believe that only they should be able to swing the sword. But when they've unleashed Medusa the way they have, only the Democrats can do it. And by the way, the Democrats will keep doing this to Republicans and people they oppose when they control the Department of Injustice. Yes, they will. They will do it over and over and over again. But don't do revenge. Don't do it against them. Don't stop them. No. I thought they believed in equity. No, not really. Here's Douglas Brinkley, who poses as a historian. Cut 5, go.
But alas, now Trump's going to get the FBI, and that's if there is such a thing as a Department of Revenge and Retribution.
Wow, that's clever. Why are you talking like Bob Woodward? What's that all about? Go ahead.
Emanating from Kash Patel and the people he brings in. And I think it's unfortunate that Ray could have stayed in maybe 3 months, 6 months in, and then perhaps backed out.
Wow, you're a fascinating historian. You're really up there with the other fascinating historians, David. Oh, I like David Brinkley. Douglas Brinkley. Yes, you're just unbelievable. If he could have just stayed on 3 or 6 more months, this Christopher Wray would be unbelievable. You know, he could have stopped what will be the lawless Kash Patel. So the same dug-in media, the same dug-in academics, the same dug-in guests, the same dug-in Democrats, there they are, the same bastards before the election. After the election, here they are, saying the things that they say. They're like broken records, these people. They're not only monotonous, they are hatchet men and women. That's what they are. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, they say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper. You'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone, don't you think? Well, don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/LEVIN, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Well, we're not done with these attacks on Kash Patel and the great Christopher Wray. What did he do exactly? What? Exactly. And so Joy Reid brings on reprobate George Conway. Honestly, I didn't know he was still around. I thought he left the country. But he's still around. You know, Kellyanne Conway is a fantastic lady. Fantastic. She's a genius. She really is brilliant at what she does. By all accounts, she was a wonderful wife and is a wonderful mother. She's a great professional. She's a great example to so many people. I don't get it. This George Conway, I don't get it. Was it really so important To embrace the radical left agenda, the hate Trump agenda? I mean, really? To humiliate your wife? I mean, that's so ridiculous. Anyway, Joy Reid, who really can be said to be the nation's television bigot, in my humble opinion. Good job, Comcast. I thought you were spinning this off. I thought you were spinning her off. But no. Here we go. Cut 7, go.
Because there is a saying among those who want to fight autocracy, do not comply in advance. Yep. Today, Christopher Wray... Excuse me,
but that's a saying. Did anybody ever hear that? What the hell is she talking about? So this is autocracy now. She is really, in my opinion, mentally unhinged. Just my opinion. We can get an expert to check her, but why would I? She's just off her rocker. Go ahead.
Hoover used to have. But J. Edgar Hoover used to make presidents fear him. Yep. Christopher Wray clearly fears Trump and stepped down. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I wish he had not done that. I wish Christopher Wray had not done that, precisely for the reason that you say. I mean, Professor Snyder's great quote from his book on tyranny, don't obey in advance. And I wish, he should, I wish it would be my preference for Wray to have stayed and gotten fired so that we could all point out, and it would illustrate how extraordinary this situation is, where the president of the United States, who is a convicted criminal and indicted, who has been indicted
and you're supposed to be a lawyer? What are you, slip and fall lawyer? What are you? You're supposed to be a lawyer? What the hell are you? Soviet-style trial? I mean, you're such a partisan hack. Your brain is so mashed potato-like that this is what you're reduced to? He's a convicted felon. America already passed judgment on this. We know what happened in Manhattan, you clown. Kash Patel has better credentials to be the FBI director, Conway, than you do. Yes, I know you write good briefs and stuff, but that's not what it's about. You don't even know this man. And between the two of you, the bigot Joy Reid and the mentally unhinged, you don't even talk about his background on TV. You don't even explain to the American people what he's done. The heroics, the courage that we've discussed here, that we discussed on Fox with Chairman Nunes, none of it. So the people watching this program, of which there are very few these days, by the way, very, very few, and the number is shrinking, because even the left is sick and tired of these bigots and these buffoons. They don't get to hear the truth. All they get to hear is your conclusions and your opinions. Autocracy, convicted felon. Go ahead.
Firing the FBI director for the stated reason that the FBI
now, he didn't fire the FBI director. He was going to. The FBI director quit. But see, they hate representative government. They hate elections. Unless they win, of course. Then they have mandates to do all kinds of undemocratic things. But Donald Trump is firing Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray had to sign off on the SWAT team going after Donald Trump and his home. Are you going to be president of the United States? You're going to keep an FBI director like that? You can't trust him any more than you can trust Comey or any more than he could trust Mueller. He needs to have a trusted FBI director. A trusted FBI director. Is that so horrendous? No, it's not. But these people want you to believe it. For instance, I've never been invited on Joy Reid's program. Why not? Because I'm not loyal to her. Because I don't agree with her. Is that okay? I guess it's okay. What do I care? But you get the point? They hang around in the same social circles. They all walk in lockstep behind the same attitude and positions. They're all a bunch of crackpots. That's perfectly fine. Donald Trump says, I'm running the government. I want somebody the FBI I can trust and who's going to do a good job. No, you can't do that. You have to have Christopher Wray. Yeah, so he can screw you. That's right, Christopher Wray. These people are buffoons. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
This is the Power Hour, Hour 3. Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. Our number is 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. It's time for a national conversation about left-wing violence, writes David Harsanyi, and I agree with him. As he writes in the Washington Examiner, if reports are true, it looks like the targeted killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York last week was politically motivated. The alleged shooter, Luigi Maggioni, a former Ivy leader from an affluent family, was reportedly caught with some kind of manifesto. Even before we knew who the shooter was, the reaction from far too many leftists was to either justify, celebrate, or rationalize the shooting. We brought to you last night by audio Senator Elizabeth Warren, who justified it. The alleged shooter, Luigi Maggioni. There's a real debate going on in some quarters of the progressive left over whether slaying CEOs is a bad thing. And it's unsurprising. Of course, if any MAGA professors or journalists were online publicly defending the killing of perceived political enemies, there'd be thousands of wringing hands lamenting the menacing rhetoric of conservatism, and rightly so. It should not be lost on us that there is a clear ideological continuum between people who rationalize the shooting of a CEO and those who rationalize the murder and rape of Jews by Palestinian terrorists, and those who rationalize the burning down of cities for social justice. And in this point, I think we made it last night as well, about how these people, how Elizabeth Warren sounded just like the pro-Hamas, the pro-October 7 slaughter crowd. Now, he says if you're convinced your opponents are abetting some imaginary genocide, you have a moral duty to stop them, right? And much of the left-wing violence we've seen is predicated on the idea the enemy is irredeemably nefarious. On his Goodreads page, Maggioni quotes left-wing terrorist Ted Kaczynski, though his reading list is mostly mainstream left-leaning technocratic authors. The Unabomber's unhinged demonization of modernity and capitalism was a fringe position in the 90s. Now the unhinged demonization of healthcare insurance, the pharmaceutical industry, big oil, all industries, despite their inadequacies, that make lives better for everyone is the norm. I even had to explain this to Chip Roy. Remember that interview, Mr. Producer? He was going off, big this and big that. We're going to get big that. Hey, slow down. You sound like Bernie Sanders. And I think he caught himself. He realized he was getting a little carried away. I do love it, though. A generation of college students have been indoctrinated into believing the profit motive is killing people when the opposite is true. One expects Maggioni's writing will be largely indistinguishable from that a person hears from elected progressives and pundits. This is so true. Yet few will ponder why a seemingly rational Ivy League-educated engineer decided to become a hitman. Leftist violence is always treated as something completely apart. Every time there's a mass shooting, everyone scours the web trying to divine the motivations of the shooter. When the perpetrator's a left-winger, the media plunges into a national discussion about the problems of gun culture. When there's no coherent ideological reason for the shooting, the media plunges into a discussion about problems of gun culture. And when the shooter's a right-winger, an approximation of one, we're called to talk about gun culture and the climate of hate created by conservative rhetoric. You may recall the time when Paul Krugman and the New York Slime's editorial board said without any evidence that Sarah Palin inspired the 2011 shooting of Gabby Giffords in Tucson, Arizona. And I seem to recall, Mr. Producer, they pointed a finger at me, too, you might recall. The climate of hate, that climate of hate canard goes back at least to the assassination of President John Kennedy in Dallas, which incidentally was perpetrated by a communist. Indeed, the last president before Kennedy be assassinated was William McKinley, who met his end via 2 bullets fired by another leftist extremist named Leo Zakauskas. The left has been prone to violence since year zero. In the early 1900s, the United States was awash in communist and anarchy bombings, culminating in the deaths of 30 people on the Wall Street in 1920. Most cultural depictions of the 60s upheavals were a genteel, peace-loving movement, but it was imbued with extremists as well. By the 70s, left-wing terrorist groups such as the Weather Underground were setting off bombs at the Capitol, police stations, the Pentagon, and state attorneys general's offices. In an 18-month period between 1971 and 72, there were an amazing 2,500 bombings in the U.S. by leftist groups. Worse than is now, violence was often ignored or idolized by the intellectual left. When I was young, leftists would sometimes commemorate mass murders such as Che Guevara, Mao Zedong. Today, feted contemporary public individuals such as Ta-Nehisi Coates write books celebrating terrorism. The late Kathy Boudin, a former Weather Underground member who was involved in a Brinks truck robbery that killed 2 innocent people, operated the Columbia University Center for Justice for decades. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Angela Davis, widely considered a hero by younger progressives, who not only championed murders and terrorist regimes her entire career, but brought 2 guns used in a courtroom kidnapping shootout perpetrated by the Black Panthers in the 1970s, where 3 hostages and a Superior Court judge were murdered in Marin County, California. There's simply no comparable mainstreaming of right-wing extremists. Oh, January 6th. James Hodgkinson, who walked onto an Alexandria, Virginia baseball field in 2018 and opened fire at a Republican congressional delegation. Remember, Steve Scalise was almost murdered. Unbelievable. Wasn't an exotic leftist. He was a Bernie Sanders fan. Certainly no reporter ran around the halls of Congress asking every elected Democrat if they were going to lower the temperature of their rhetoric. This is a great piece. Nor did they do so when a left-wing assassin showed up at the House of Justice Brett Kavanaugh promising to, quote, stop Roe v. Wade from being overturned by shooting for 3 justices. After years of hearing the demonization of the Supreme Court, the man showed up with a Glock, zip ties, duct tape, and various other tools. When Paul Pelosi was attacked by a deranged man, the entire media conversation revolved around conservative rhetoric. When we had 2 attempted assassinations of Donald Trump, most of the left could barely stop calling him Hitler. The public is incessantly warned that white supremacists are gathering in the shadows, ready to spring their coup. So dangerous were these alleged impending major civil disturbances. The Justice Department created a new category of extremists to track and counter the anti-government or anti-authority violent extremists. But to the left, parents who protest school boards over critical race theory and mask mandates, they're the domestic terrorists. But those who burn down cities, well, they're mostly peaceful. And when mostly peaceful unrest envelops the nation, causing billions in damage, he's talking about the summer of 2000, destroying thousands of lives. One could barely get anyone in the media to admit it was even happening. Indeed, plenty of reporters and pundits defended Marxist Antifa protesters, quote unquote. You can see they're anti-fascists right in the name, right? If any of these groups had been on the right, we would scar the American psyche forever. The resulting HBO documentary would already have won a bunch of Emmys. Antifa and Black Lives Matter marches sparked the most expensive or prolonged domestic destruction in American history from 2016 to 2020. Looting, rioting, arson, homicide, and Democrats were never asked in any serious way to condemn it. Yes, BLM was an objectively racist movement that was tethered to a slew of media-generated myths, Michael Brown being the most prominent, and incidents that had not now proven racial component, George Floyd. Even before 2020, there were riots in Milwaukee, Baltimore, Oakland, California, and Ferguson, Missouri. Why was there no conversation about the dangers of leftist race baiting when 5 Dallas police officers were gunned down by Black Lives Matter activists? Even during the riots, name-brand pundits excused the destruction, arguing the victims had insurance. It didn't matter that immigrant and minority-owned businesses already suffering from needless COVID-19 shutdowns suffered most of all. None of this is to maintain there isn't right-wing violence. Of course there is. It's simply to say that we should acknowledge a lot, perhaps most, of our contemporary political violence emanates from the left, and a lot of it is girded by the hard left progressive turn in American politics, and I might add, by the media, the corrupt, poisonous media. And so there they are. We have so-called comedians. We have so-called news people. We have so-called members of the Senate and the House and many others celebrating the murder of an innocent man shot in the back because they don't like the insurance industry. Sick and getting sicker. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, when we Americans think of Canada, if we think of Canada, we think of it as a very large country with not a lot of people. Nice place to visit, maybe a nice place to grow a family. They keep pointing to it as a socialist healthcare haven, and there we have the Prime Minister Trudeau, the son of a former Prime Minister, sort of liberal, left center. And things are just kind of peachy keen there and in Canada, but that's not true. In fact, Jew hatred is running rampant in Canada, as it is in so much of Europe, as it is in many of our universities and colleges. But in Canada, it's unbelievable what's taking place there. In a piece I read and I posted, The Explosion of Jew Hate in Trudeau's Canada. And it's really an incredible piece that I commend to you by Terry Glavin. It's in the Free Press. But Terry is a Canadian author and journalist and a columnist with the National Post as well. Terry, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing fine. This is an exceptional piece. It's a long piece. You point out in the piece that what's going on in Canada is not anecdotal. It's really systemic. Explain to the American people what is going on in Canada.
Oh, gosh, where do you want to begin?
Beginning.
What's going on in Canada, I mean, it's very difficult to capture for Americans particularly, because there's an idea of this country that Americans generally have. It's generally a very benign view, and we're sort of, quiet, self-effacing, we're unarmed, and
right.
The difficulty that Canada, we've always had a bit of a difficulty in that we are a bilingual, multicultural, constitutional monarchy, very thinly populated, very decentralized federation, spread out on top of the most, dynamic, culturally dynamic nation states in the history of the world. And so it's always been kind of difficult for us to have a conversation of our own. And maintaining some sense of social cohesion and national unity has been the primary sort of function of the Prime Minister's office. And we have a Prime Minister who came to office with the notion that there is no central cultural ethos in Canada, that we are a post-national state with no core identity. And, this is all very she and it's all very interesting. But what happens in that kind of a mindset is that, for instance, how do you do national security in a post-national state? Another very difficult challenge in this kind of an environment is what if you have a Prime Minister who's actually quite intimately associated with the People's Republic of China and with Chinese business interests, who believes that we should have essentially no borders. And, I don't know, it'd be interesting to kind of do the comparison with the United States, because I know Americans are very vexed and worried about illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your numbers are exactly, but there's about 41 million people in this country, roughly. And close to 5 million people in this country are here on various kinds of visas that expire within a year. And there's absolutely no, I think, reasonable expectation that they're all simply going to go home. We have seen, since the Trudeau government came into power 10 years ago, rents have doubled, prices are absolutely out of control, house prices. There's all these people here, God bless them, but there's nowhere to put them, there's no room for them in the economy. And then we have, just as an example, by the federal government's own guess, up to 500,000 people in this country who are here illegally. I think the last count was 240,000 asylum claims that have been filed within the country. by visitors, and it takes an average of 44 weeks for any single asylum claim to be adjudicated. And then we don't know what happens to them after it's suggested to them that they might want to leave. Mm-hmm. So into this kind of strange post-national mix, you have, coming out of the universities primarily, I don't know how to describe it. An ideology might be dressing it up a little bit too much, but an ideational package of a kind that has kind of gone from the bottom of to the top of institutions throughout Canadian society that understand this country as a racist apartheid settler state. This is something that has emerged over the last, since the 1970s, as an understanding on the radical left and the Islamist left of what Israel is. And so, suddenly out of the blue, you have these monstrous atrocities October 7th of last year. And the next thing you know, you have thousands of people marching in the streets celebrating the barbarism of what is arguably the most hideous theocratic fascism on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I think the Jews of this country are a bit shell-shocked. I spent a lot of time, I've been covering this story for a long time. There's a kind of a unique Canadian anti-Semitism. But I can tell you that I don't know any, and it's my job to find out what the hell is going on. And I think it's a fair statement that Canada's Jews are disconsolate. They are afraid, increasingly. There's been a 670% increase in the incidence of anti-Semitic events, anti-Semitic incidents across the country over the past year. And basically, I try to explain this, and I document this, and I try to explain this in the story in the Free Press.
And you have a lot of examples of what's taking place. And interestingly, even though you're using examples, you say, really, it's not about examples. It's about this is actually happening in our culture and in our country. And it's an explosion of this anti-Semitism. And the graffiti that takes place, the protests that take place, in fact, the physical attacks that are taking place. I want to pursue this with you further. If I may, Terry Glavin, he has this unbelievable piece in the Free Beacon. I posted it. I encourage you to read it. The explosion of Jew hate in Trudeau's Canada. He's also a Canadian author and journalist and a columnist for the National Post. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the research arm of conservative media. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Terry Glavin is a Canadian author and journalist, a columnist for the National Post, and he's written a really incredible piece, The Explosion of Jew Hate in Trudeau's Canada, in the Free Press here, and I want to quote from it briefly, Terry, so people get a real feel for this in our audience, because our audience cares about this significantly. Since last October 7, there have been several drive-by shootings at Jewish schools in Montreal and Toronto. Coordinated bomb threat targeted more than 100 Jewish institutions from Halifax to Victoria. Synagogues in British Columbia and Quebec have been firebombed. One synagogue in Toronto has been vandalized 7 times since April. Its doors and windows smashed, rocks thrown through the windows. The most recent attack happened just last week. Jewish businesses across the country routinely vandalized. Jews are besieged by pro-Palestinian protesters, quote-unquote, in their own neighborhoods. Jewish parents worry about sending their children to kindergarten. Jewish university students from one end of the country to the other report being afraid to attend class. This sounds like a big crystal knot going on in Canada. And did immigration have some aspect to do with it? Because you pointed out you've had open borders. This guy Trudeau, anybody and anybody can come in. We're seeing this in our own country. We're also seeing foreign terror groups and countries funding these enterprises, these activities going on in our country. Similar things in Canada, I assume, yes?
Yeah, but I think, I mean, part of it is that it's the federal funding, the federal government's funding that is worth looking at. You know, one of the things that this government has decided to do is to kind of distinguish itself as being anti-racist in the, you know, how to put this, the post-colonial sense of that term. And so, you know, we have this sort of vast federal infrastructure of funding and set-asides and programs that enable NGOs of various kinds, certain Muslim associations, one of which is intimately associated with the teachings of Hassan al-Banna, of the the founder of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, and it really sort of goes on and on and on. When you find that this is the thing that I think is the.
And by the way, I want the audience to know this is in your article. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Yeah, it's the thing to keep your eye on. I think is that. Canada's Jews, they turn to the police, they turn to their government, they turn to their attorneys general for some protection, and they find that the government itself is kind of imbued with this ideology, and we have there's only about 350,000 Jews in Canada. One of the larger diaspora populations outside Israel. But you've got 1.8 million Muslims, and half of them have arrived in the last 10 years or so, more than half. And it's a very difficult conversation. I have to say that, I have a lot of, because of the work that I do and the work that I've done in Afghanistan and Syria and my Iranian friends, we have to be very careful not to sort of tar the Muslim community. There's really no such thing. There's several Muslim communities with this brush. But when you look at the attitudinal surveys, you find very disturbing findings that, a significant proportion of Muslims in this country, Muslim immigrants in this country, think that suicide bombing is okay, that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, that Israel is an apartheid state. And unless you've got, so going back to what I was saying at the outset, a very strong and stable sense of who you are as a people, as a country, if it's kind of, to be Canadian can mean whatever you want it to mean. Unless you've got that kind of very clear notion of what is beyond the pale and what is within the realm of legitimate opinion and debate and so on, then these kinds of, I think anti-Semitism is an unavoidable result. It's complicated. I mean, one of the ways I've tried to put it is this phenomenon is not wicked because it's anti-Semitic. It's anti-Semitic because it's wicked. It's an inevitable result of, if you don't, if the truth can mean anything, then the truth will be owned by whoever has the loudest voices, the deepest pockets, and the shiniest boots. And I think that's what we're having with the Jews in this country are having to confront this. It's not just that there's a sort of torn fabric. There's something very, very nasty that's been woven directly into the fabric of this country.
You talk about, and you have on this program, and it's certainly insinuated in the article about this this sort of fusion of the left and the anti-Semites, or as I call it, sort of a fusion on our college campuses of the Marxists and the Islamists. Yeah. And this really is a huge problem in your country, in our country, and throughout Europe, isn't it? This is, you look at our Congress, you have
This is very true, yeah.
We've
seen this for...
Yeah. Go ahead.
This goes back about 25 years, actually, and it has a very distinct institutional origin in Canada, this thing that you might describe as a kind of an alliance between the post-objective, the decent left. It's become indecent, and there's a kind of alliance between that left and Islamists, and it's very powerful. And then the other thing that you see coming up through the middle is the normalization of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, which is, of course, I think, the contemporary iteration of anti-Semitism, and it sort of becomes normalized in the popular culture, in the institutional culture, in the culture of the public service and the public sector unions and the social sciences and humanities faculties. And it goes right to the top. And, I should say, I try to tell my Jewish comrades, chin up, this government is dead. Justin Trudeau is a dead man walking. There's only about 20% of Canadians who have any affinity with him at all anymore. There's going to be an election next year. And I'm not a sort of conservative partisan by any stretch of the imagination. But I would say that the Conservatives will win in a landslide. I don't know how Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, is going to be able to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I think it's going to be extremely difficult. But that's the situation we're facing. Maybe it's a bit of a cautionary tale for Americans. I don't know. But it is not the country. Canada is not the country that we're not the neighbor that you're used to.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I remember Stephen Harper, from my perspective, was an outstanding prime minister, and he was openly pro-Israel, openly, and even on the international scene. And now you go from that to Trudeau. That's quite a hop, skip, and a jump, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about Canada is that, we've always been internationalists, right? And outwardly, our brand has been human rights, and the United Nations is kind of in our DNA. And when you've seen over the last 20, 30 years the emergence of the Organization for Islamic Cooperation at the international level, the rise of the police state bloc at the United Nations, the subversion of the United Nations Human Rights Council, and so on, this really does have an impact on the way Canadians see the world. And, we've always, unfortunately, it's been here for a while. We had the world's first Israel Apartheid Week was in Toronto. That was about, what was that now? Is that 20 years ago, 15 years ago? And, of course, it spread to 60 cities around the world. We had a boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement in this country even before the Palestinians did.
Unbelievable.
So, it is going to be a very interesting exercise in trying to put this country back together again, to be able to accommodate people. It's really tragic. I mean, we used to have a consensus, a cross-political consensus, conservatives, New Democrats, liberals, about immigration. We're very open to immigration. We loved the idea of immigrants coming to this country and, making something of themselves and their lives. We took great joy in it. And unfortunately, that consensus is broken. And I really don't know. It's not going to be fun.
Well, my friend, I'm going to have to go. I've got a heartbreak. This has been a fascinating discussion. Your article is so compelling and so beautifully explained in the Free Press, and we're going to be following you now that we've gotten to talk to you, know you a little bit. Just extraordinary reporting, and I want to thank you very much for coming on the program this evening.
Well, thanks for your interest.
All right. Well, God bless you, my friend. He's a fascinating journalist, isn't he? And that's a great piece. And the Free Press is an outstanding site ladies and gentlemen. I think you should bookmark it. I don't know Barry Weiss. I don't know the people over there, but they're doing a hell of a job. So I recommend that you take a look at it. This piece is really quite extraordinary and frightening. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, I had planned to get to some callers. Apparently, I'm not going to have time. But we can do it tomorrow, too. It never ends. It never ends. It never will end. One way or another. You know, this guy, John Fetterman. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I am the fan of some of the things he says. If the Democrat Party really wants to dig itself out of hell, it ought to at least pay attention to some of what this man says. He's not an absolute lunatic like the rest of the Democrats. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine. We've not forgotten you. The men and women in Israel, we have your backs too. And we, the American people, thank you. Thank you for saving the world. We'll see you tomorrow.